We need to dive a little bit deeper into this athletic story on the Jets, and there's a couple of key issues that we will highlight. It's time for Boy Green Daily. Let's get this started.
Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field Gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show. Come on, people. Aaron Rodgers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor Gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
It's Boy Green Daily on the weekend. Welcome to the show. Paul Ested Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green, on the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to the show. Also, feel free to watch the audio-only version if you prefer, and you don't want to see my face. I would not blame you if you choose to do so. Anywho, let's get right into it. And every Saturday, outside of some kerfluffling going on, my father joins me for a little hop on pop to give an outside perspective on the New York Jets. And why not today, after that massive article from The Athletic came out? Father, good morning.
Good morning. Truly a face only a mother could love.
Wow. Okay, way to load that one right off the top rope. But okay. So without further ado, Father, yesterday on the program, we had Italy Jet on, and we kind of skimmed. There's just so much in it. I highly recommend, of course, shout out to Diana Rossini and Zach Rosenblatt for tackling this monster of a piece. But there's just so much overwhelming information on what ends up being a 20-25 minute show. It's very difficult to kind of, sift through completely. And we only get the chance to talk once every week, at least in terms of this show. So, there was a few things that you wanted to dive in a little bit deeper that perhaps we didn't give its proper TLC yesterday, which I agree. Yesterday on the show, I was saying we can't really get everything in here. Can't get your haunches around this thing. You know what I'm talking about? You can't, kind of attack this thing. So now we can do so. And one of the points that you wanted to highlight was, and this, I'm not going to say I can't believe it's true, because, again, I know that this is completely true, but it's so bonkers that, it seems hard to believe. And that was this in The Athletic. Again, you guys could check out the full piece, The Athletic. I'll link that below after the show. Let's see. When the Jets lost to the Dolphins in Week 12, I'm just reading this from the Athletic article. They dropped their record of 4-7. Noise about Saleh's job security intensified. It didn't help that Tim Boyle threw the Hail Mary just before halftime, that it was picked off by defensive back Javon Holland and returned 99 yards for a touchdown. Thank you for reminding me of that one. Hail Mary. Excellent. Anywho, the days after, an embittered Saleh conducted research. He wanted to see how teams led by the NFL's best coaches perform when playing without their star quarterback. He found that, and here's the list: Bill Belichick, Mike McCarthy, John Harbaugh, Zach Taylor, Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, all had losing records in those situations, and that Mike Tomlin was the lone exception. That became Saleh's battle cry as the Jets' losses piled up and criticism mounted. What do you expect? We lost Aaron Rodgers. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'm actually going to give it a little bit of a slant, right? Arguably, and for anyone on the phone line, you could say that, what you think about Tony Romo. I'm not saying Tony Romo is a Hall of Fame quarterback, but I will tell you, I would say through the course of NFL history, he was a solid towards top tier quarterback. And people forget what happened when he went out for the season. With a solid backup and a plan, the Cowboys went 13-3 that year when they lost their starting quarterback in a very similar situation to Aaron Rodgers. But anyways, I digress. So that name didn't come out, right? They made it to the playoffs that year that Romo went out. And there was nowhere in their plans that Dak Prescott was going to start that year. And so, anyways, back to Robert Saleh. Excuse me. This Athletic really brought out three things. I think we're going to hit each of them. And it really is this. So it's not good enough. It's not good enough to be know a lot about football, to be a good defensive coordinator, to be a head coach. Being a head coach is not like, it's just like being a leader in any industry. You have to be a leader. You have to set a clear vision for the organization. He is the mouthpiece of the New York Jets, right? You have Joe Douglas and the owner and all those other things.
But Saleh speaks more than any of those guys. Yeah, I got you.
He's the face of the franchise. And what he says matters. And we could go through the entire myriad of ridiculously stupid things that he said throughout 2023. But just the concept that he would say, what are you going to do? We lost our quarterback, essentially. And even going to the point of researching and justifying it, right? I mean, that he's not. I would never stand up, right? I'm not a football head coach, but I am a director who at one point had oversight of 10 nuclear power plants in the maintenance department. And I would never stand up in front of the organization and make excuses, nor research, nor show the bad press, right? That sets the entire vision for the team. And then you couple that with the other things, the flip-flopping. In the article, it talked about how he went to Zach and said, pretty much you're done. We're going to put you on injured reserve for the rest of the season.
And we're going to trade you. Yeah.
And then we're going to trade you. And a few weeks later, oh, wait, I need you to go back out there, which, by the way, makes it more justifiable for Zach Wilson to be reluctant to go back in there after essentially they set him down. We're shutting your butt down. You're never going to be a Jet again. And then a few weeks, hey, by the way, you want to come back out? And so you couple that, was it the week 15 or 16 with Robert Saleh, when he said they had all those pre-snap penalties, which I believe they led the NFL in. And he goes, so, yeah, we're going to have to look at that.
Yeah, right.
And he said it like 3 times. We're gonna
have to get to the tape on that one and figure that one out. And then you're like, what week is this? Is this week 2? Is this Yeah.
So to me, just to finish up my thought on Saleh on this article, this is the information that if I'm Woody, the owner, this is my leverage stick to get rid of Saleh today. He probably didn't have this information. Maybe he had some of it. I would hope he didn't have it. Some of these things that came out in the article, some of the thoughts, the thought process, you tie all this together. This is the leverage for the Jets to make moves. And Saleh, I would get rid of him now and hire Vrabel.
So you've established that you were not this football coach as your career choice, but you have been in leadership positions as you gave some of the fans here some insight into. One of the so we'll go into your Zach Wilson story. So the initial Athletic big story that came out in the middle of the season was Zach Wilson was reluctant to go back and play, and Zach Wilson was destroyed on social media. Fans are like, you don't want to play for your teammates. But again, if we didn't hear the full backstory, as we later found out, maybe that changes your perception a little bit. But once that story comes out, and there was obviously a leak that shared that information back to the Athletic. The Athletic reported in this much bigger piece months later that Robert Saleh held a meeting with all his coaches and gathered them in the huddle. It's like, all right, if there's obviously a leak in here, come on, just kind of step up to the plate and you're cool. You won't get in trouble. Just come on and out and say it. No one's coming out, huh? All right, phones. Let me see the phones. Let's go. Phones. I ask you, as someone who's been in a leadership position, and I imagine, well, not imagine, I mean, I know this, but don't know this, that there is key vital information in your job that one of your people could leak to the media or somebody, I don't know who the thing would be, that you would find out that there is a leak, because when you hear the information, you're like, oh, that information sounds kind of true. How would you handle that situation? Because Saleh, some people have called it immaturity and other things when he kind of overreacted. And in the Athletic, they even talk about it, that some of the coaches in the room were like, whoa, he is making a big deal out of something that's not really a big deal here in terms of this specific leak. And he got a lot of criticism for it in the piece. So I spin it back to you, because I don't know the answer to this question, so I'm kind of curious. If you had a leak in your leadership position that was someone below you, how do you handle that? What are you supposed to do?
Yeah. So, and it's interesting. I just want to mention this timing because I think we're going to talk about this other shoe in a little while. Right. He didn't say that until after Aaron Goofball went on the Pat McAfee show and said, we got to shore up the leak. After Aaron dropped that bomb, then Saleh said, then he pulled everybody together, not before that. So
yeah, I'm not sure the day. The only thing I don't know is the day. Like I don't know. It had to have been before the McAfee show, so he appears on a Tuesday. So the leak of the Zach Wilson reluctance had to come out Monday or Tuesday before his interview, which led to the meeting. Yes,
right. So
timeline. Yeah.
So the leak, so that information comes out. Rodgers gets on his Pat McAfee show. Then Saleh calls the meeting.
Correct.
Yes. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes,
again, right. If that comes out, then I take the action I'm about to say, right? So this is what you do when you have that leak. The fact is you have to go back to the reason you had the leak, right? You bring the people in that you believe are the population that could have leaked the information, and you explain to them, we're going to have an open forum here. Okay, obviously we have some concerns. Let's get them all out so I don't read about it in the paper. Right. So we're going to have an open conversation, a closed room meeting, open conversation, whatever it is. And whoever speaks, I'm not assuming you leaked it, but let's talk about it. Let's get to the whys behind you feel that way. And then you have that full conversation afterwards, and then you respond to it. Afterwards, you go, from now on, we need to have one of these meetings when these concerns arise. We need to rally as a unit, and we need to keep our business in-house. That's how you handle it. You don't bring everyone together looking for somebody to stand up, because no one's ever going to stand up. It was me. Nobody's going to do that. Nobody in the world. You could be at a supermarket, NFL team, or on Wall Street. Nobody's going to step forward. Everyone that's responsible will take one step forward. Nobody's going to do that. So you go to the whys behind it happened. You explain why it's detrimental to the team. And that's how you address it. And then you're almost like you're a 3-year-old. I'm gonna take your cell phones. By the way, if someone in a meeting, even with my job, someone tells me to take your cell phone, I said, what you're gonna take is a flying blank and a rolling donut, because you're not getting my phone.
Yeah. I don't know how that could have, maybe it's like a veiled threat, like, hey, do it. And then if you do it, okay, then it worked because he just asked a question and then you ended up, relenting. If they said no, I don't think it's like he's jumping over the table and grabbing the phone away from him. You know what I mean? So, but it just doesn't look good. It just does not look good. And as I've noticed, someone said, because of our setup here, Danny says it looks like your dad's arms are crossed because you're perfectly on top of Robert Saleh here. So you've got father head Robert Saleh body, who is quite upset. So very fitting, Danny. Very nice comment there. So there was a lot of Robert Saleh stuff that was very concerning. That I mentioned it yesterday. One of the things off the top that bothered me is that it went from, Super Bowl playoffs, whoa, Rodgers out, survival, self-preservation. Let's do whatever we can. And that's another question I would have asked Zach Rosenblatt, some sort of follow-up, is they kept talking about the 7-win number. So I don't know, did Woody come up with that? Did the coaches say, that's probably a good number to save our asses here? I don't know. So that's the part I don't know that you can't pull from the story. This 7-win barometer that they determined was good enough, I assume, to save them. That's one part that I did not see. So let's continue on Saleh. Is there anything else Saleh-wise you wanted to handle on this?
Yeah, no, I think that's a burning platform. He's not a good leader. The fact that he is not, you're the head coach. You're not the defensive coordinator. You're not the defensive head coach, whatever that looks like, right? And the fact that he completely is hands off on the offense, you don't have to be the offensive genius to know the game plan, but you need to be plugged in. And the fact that he literally doesn't do anything with them segues into the next thing I wanted to talk about in the article, which is garbage time. The worst head coach in the history of the NFL. Is that what Sean Payton said?
About Hackett last year. Yeah, it was like the worst coaching job in NFL history. What Hackett did in his first year with the Denver Broncos.
Yeah. Until this year, where Hackett replaced the worst coaching job in the history of the NFL with this coaching job. Yes, it segues directly into that.
I see. Okay. And the thing with Hackett the thing I liked, so I highlighted this in the article, but I was like reading it and trying to comment on it on social media in spurts. But the thing, so I like and hate this at the same time. So apparently, when the Jets got to this offseason, obviously Hackett, we all know the numbers. I don't have to spit them out of like being third last in points per game, second worst in total yards, and all these other horrible stats that they were terrible in this season. So Hackett was not great. Apparently, in the Athletic article, it says that Saleh has been trying to add pieces to the room to mitigate the impact of Hackett. So it's less Hackett, hey, let's call plays or whatever it is, and collaborative, a team, because that even happened in the middle of last season, right? So Hackett was the guy on the sideline, and they said, let's just change his location. But it wasn't really just changing his location. When they moved him up to the booth, they plugged Todd Downing right next to him, a former offensive coordinator and play caller, to try to, collaborate in the middle of last season, and now they're trying to do it again. So the Athletic article, so at least Saleh, there's some awareness there, because he was basically ignoring that question all year. Like, Hackett, is there any thought to change him? Absolutely not. Nope, we're keeping him, and like refused. But it seems like at the very least, they're trying to add someone else to this room this offseason, some sort of veteran mind. Again, that would be another follow-up for Zach of what are we talking about here? Like John Gruden, or like some person from a Rodgers past or something. And when I use John Gruden, because someone complained about that yesterday, I'm not saying John Gruden is connected to the Jets. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying like a guy like John Gruden, who's been around forever. He's an NFL mind. There's relatively speaking, there's a million John Grudens out there of just longtime NFL people that have called plays, been a head coach, been everything, and adding that sort of thing to the room. So it seems like the Jets are trying to do that, which is good. But the bad news is if you're keeping Hackett and you're saying, okay, keep playing in the sandbox, but we're going to bring some other kids along too to play in there with you. It just like, if you're going to do that, then maybe you should just cut out the cancer and just remove the guy if you don't think he can do the job, which they obviously do not with some of these decisions. That part's a little troubling, but we know why, because Aaron Rodgers' relationship with Nathaniel Hackett, obviously.
Right. By the way, this is the bullshit bell.
Wow.
So
Okay. Thank you for establishing that.
Yeah. So anyways, this article really called out the things that you and I have been discussing both on this podcast or discussion when I've come on and outside of it, right? That Saleh, right? Terrible. Hackett, terrible. And then we'll get to the next one, which is, the shout, surprise everyone, Rodgers, terrible. So that's it. You hear what we're saying, like an average person, like the Jets fans are amazing. You go to the Dumb and Dumber or that telephone commercial, and the ever inspiring Jet fan. So there's not like 1 in a million chance that's ever going to happen. So you're saying there's a chance, right? And so the reality is, do we hear what we're saying? It's okay that Hackett sucks because Aaron Rodgers is really the offensive coordinator when he's in the huddle until he plays 4 snaps, and then he goes into the darkness for 6 weeks in California and doesn't come back, right? And so, we'll get someone to help Hackett out, because he doesn't know that Breece Hall can catch a pass until halfway through the season. And he doesn't know that maybe you should double team Micah Parsons. And he doesn't know that potentially you should meet with the entire offense as the offensive coordinator of the New York Football Jets. It's beyond embarrassing. And again, I don't want to jump ahead to the third topic, but right.
I just can't believe that was in the piece, though. To your point, we were at that game. So for those who missed it, because again, some of you don't have a subscription to Athletic, but you guys should get one. There was a piece in the Athletic. So the Cowboys game's going on. The Jets in their scheme, apparently, I didn't know this till I read it in the piece, that they like keeping their tackles on island. So it's mano-a-mano. It's tackle versus whoever the pass rusher is. So Dwayne Brown, 1,000-year-old Dwayne Brown, is one-on-one with Micah Parsons. And Hackett's like, woo, this sounds great. And then apparently Todd Downing or somebody goes, Coach, may want to throw a chippy or a little something over there. He's like, no. This is it. And then it's a disaster. And then like after, that was another. So here's another terrible. I don't think this made the column, but this is actually what happened. This is another terrible Hackett admittance after the fact. They're like, what did you just say? So, right, like Breece Hall, he surprised me on that pass catching. I'm sorry, coach. He had 11.5 yards per reception. That like led the league last year. What do you mean it surprised you? So Micah Parsons, right? Like he destroys the Jets game plan. Later in the week, coordinators normally speak on Thursdays. They're like, "Oh, Micah Parsons did a lot of one-on-one there." He said something like, "Wow, his power and speed sort of caught me off guard."
Yeah, he did say that.
Whatever
what?
he said, it was something like that. And Jeffrey's like, "Excuse me, what?" The number one pass rusher and defensive player of the year, like finalist candidate, like what? I'm sorry, who now? So yeah, so he's had a couple of comments where like, wow, and he speaks once a week for like 10 minutes. Like, I mean, you're really marginally, we're talking about mitigating the impact of play calling. You're mitigating the impact of saying something stupid when you're only talking 10 minutes once a week. But he really went out of his way to say, hey, hold my beer. And yeah, I remember that one. I could not believe that actually happened. So I forgot that. There was way back a week too, but wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And just, somebody made a comment, go back to, Robert Saleh doesn't know anything about offense, right? So, it is important to know, right?
Like, oh, yeah, here it is. Yeah.
Right. I'm in charge of a lot of things. And the people for me are the experts, right? But when there is different leaders of different parts of my organization, I don't know how to laser align a coolant pump. I don't know how to calibrate a circuit breaker that, powers 4160 volts. But what I do know is, here's what I want to have happen. Here's the vision. You go make it happen. My job is a vision. Your job is to make it happen. So my example is, I need you to get Breece Hall the ball. You need to scheme that in. So he doesn't have to get in the room and dissect what they're doing. He can do that on defense, which is, have more presence there. But he needs to set the vision of what he wants. And then Hackett's job is to make it happen. And so he can't pretend well, I really hope that offense thing is going to work itself out. You can't.
Which apparently was a criticism, right? That's in the Athletic article that Saleh's incredibly hands off when the ship's going down. It's like, isn't that when the coach is supposed to jump in? Because one of the things that attracted the Jets, it goes perfectly to the point. Prior to Saleh was Adam Gase. He was here for 2 years. And basically what we all called it was head coach of the offense, head coach of the defense. He had Greg Williams in, the colorful personality that was Greg Williams. And they both coached separately, like offense, Gase, defense, Greg Williams. It was a disaster. Saleh, when he came in, I remember in his introductory press conference, he said, I'm going to be a CEO type. I'm not going to call defense, which also surprised me. They're like, wow, that's the reason you got hired, but you're not going to call defense plays. Jeff Ulbrich did, and by the way, he's ended up doing a wonderful job. But he said, I will be a CEO. I will oversee the entire operation. And Jeff Fred's like, yes, after what just happened, phenomenal. That's exactly what we need. But apparently, it's kind of fallen short a couple years later. So.
Right. Again, so before we go to the last thing, this is another example of, again, I'm the owner, I'm the GM. When these details come out about Hackett that I may or may not have known, right? Well, it's worse if I did know. And it's actually bad if I didn't. And it's also bad if I didn't know. But what it is now is now your platform is on fire. Like someone's dumped gasoline on the podium that you're speaking on, and they have lit it on fire. And now this is the leverage, right? We're all held hostage, as in the article it talks about, right? The real GM of the New York Football Jets is Aaron Rodgers. And so now you can use this as leverage. Okay, GM Aaron, all right, go back to your darkness. But what we need to do is take action on your buddy, right? Hackett here. They can use this to get rid of Hackett right now.
Yeah. Here's the quote. It's just a funny quote here from the Athletic. I found it real quick. Let me see who said this. Oh, an AFC general manager. Rodgers isn't the assistant GM. One AFC general manager said it. Joe Douglas is the assistant GM, like the assistant GM to Rodgers. Right. Yeah. Wow. Unbelievable. Okay. And the last piece of the puzzle you wanted to get to was what? Aaron Rodgers. What part of that piece did you want to get to? Yes.
And this. It's unlike the other two, which I believe the parts of the article that give you what you need to get rid of. You get rid of Saleh, you get rid of Hackett. You're not going to get rid of Aaron Rodgers, unfortunately, right? This was a bad purchase, right? I actually look back, right? So you're very unique, right? I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You're a perfect Jets fan. Is when you talk about Aaron Rodgers' injury history, you're like, the past 5 years. Well, if you go back 6 years, he only played 7 games 6 years ago. So you like
But I
isolate.
didn't.
Okay, well that's bad data. So if I stop at 5, he's only missed 1 game due to COVID. If I go back to 6, he missed 10 games. But
You want to know
anyway,
something that's funny? I would just say this real quick. So this may be an inside joke, I guess, but hopefully you guys get it. So we have before I do radio for a living, so sports talk show host. But before I had my gig, there was a guy that sat in my seat. His name was Bud Poliquin, and he was a longtime columnist here, and he's been on the East Coast and West Coast and everything. And he covered Jim Boeheim. And Jim Boeheim, who's no longer the Syracuse head coach, but he had a run of time where things weren't as great. And what Bud Poliquin did is he cherry picked, okay, a bunch of years ago. It has to be 10 years ago now. Syracuse started a season 25-0, right? Like, so, whoa, that is pretty good. But Bud Poliquin wrote a piece where he started his assessment of a period of time at game number 26. So he didn't count the 25-0 of Boeheim season. Said, wow, from game 26 to insert a few years later, this is like the worst run in Syracuse history. Bud Poliquin goes to a press conference the next time after that article goes out, and Jim Boeheim goes, wait, before I start, hey, Bud Poliquin, you can't do that. You can't just pick game 26. And then it was this phenomenal exchange. Bud's like, I can do it because I just did. And Boeheim's like, what? You got to include the full season. He's like, no, I don't. Did you read the piece? I didn't. And it was just this fun back and forth of like a cherry picking in time, at least in my example. While Bud's was funny and that was great fodder on the radio, he, picking like the middle of a season just after you start losing, that kind of, if you're ever going to say, like, at least for my 5-year example, it's 5 full years prior to this injury. Like, it wasn't, I'm not saying it now. Like, it was before, obviously, this past season happened. It was the last 5 years. It wasn't like the last 4 years and 3 months. It was the last 5 years. Sure, you point out that 6. If the 6 was a healthier year, I probably would have extended out the last 6 years was this window. So I just picked the window.
Yeah, Bud Pollock would be very proud of you. Yeah, you're very selective on that. I just got to put a fun fact, and I'm going to go into briefly this. Okay. Just a fun fact. What season in the historic and epic career of Aaron Rodgers, what season did he have his lowest QBR ever? And I'm not counting the 4 plays. So what season was it that he had? I have the answer.
Oh, geez. I already know. What is it, 2022?
It was 2022. The worst season, the lowest QBR, and I just want to drop something very interesting on you. I think it's very interesting. It's just I got to go to my notes here just real quick.
Sure. I can appreciate a man taking notes. Yeah.
I'm going to name a few names for you. Ready?
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo, Geno Smith,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Andy Dalton,
all right,
Ryan Tannehill,
sure,
Daniel Jones, and Kirk Cousins. What do all those people have in common? They all had a higher QBR than Aaron Rodgers in 2022.
I mean, he was injured, but okay. And he played through it
he was
like a champ.
Yeah, okay. Right. You bought, unlike people that say buy low, sell high, the Jets have a history of buying high and eating the low. Right. So Aaron Rodgers, there's a reason they let him go. There's plenty of reasons why they let him go. And one of it ties right in the Athletic article. He is a cancer in the locker room. That's
not the C word I would use. I would use captain, comeback,
There's a few other C words, but this is a PG show. So, right. He is the one. If he truly was the de facto offensive coordinator, if he truly was in what you ridiculously call Zach Wilson's redshirt year, which is ridiculous, if he truly was going to mentor him, it's called out clearly in the Athletic article that he went radio silent for 6 weeks when Zach Wilson needed him the most. I thought I could rely on him. And what was he doing? He didn't miss a Pat McAfee show, just so you know. He didn't miss an opportunity to do whatever he wanted. He chose to go back to his home of record in California and have the surgery, and then went quiet. Didn't help out the Jets. And then he kept jabbing. He kept jabbing, right? Well, we really need to cut out these leaks, right? All the negativity, not all, a large portion of it came from Aaron Rodgers. And when they really need him, when he really could add value, and everybody, you could tell everybody on the show, I said this, where is he? He should be there. And this is 2024, it was 2023 last year. There's a technology that they could have set something up that he could have, even if he had to go to California, which obviously the only place to have a hospital or rehab center in the world, right? That he could disappear, leave the Jets in the lurch, because for those 4 plays, but how much did he make? He make $10 million a play or something like that. I don't know how much it was. And right, we bought this now. There's no return policy, right? But if you just think about all of it, that the negativity, maybe I'll come back for a second or third year. Maybe, well, if it's okay with me, we have took away the right that he is a player, that his contract is fully guaranteed, even though it's not guaranteed he's going to play. And it's just, we need the learning from this, beside the first 2, fire Saleh, fire Hackett. The learning from this is we need to put Aaron Rodgers to make him understand he is a quarterback, right? You know who took the Packers to the second round of the playoffs with the same freaking team? You know who did? His replacement.
Never thought you'd bring this up of your own volition on the program, but yeah, he did. Okay.
Yeah. So, right. Aaron Rodgers is a problem, needs to understand that he's a player, that is an employee of the football Jets and not in charge. That's what needs to really happen. And if he doesn't like it, if he steps away from football, I think you have an opportunity to get some of that contract money back if he voluntarily bags ass, right? But he's an employee, right? As I said last week, the Jets needed a journeyman quarterback with the tools they had, with the Breece Hall, with the Wilson, with the defense, right? They needed a journeyman quarterback, and they could have used that money to do more things. What I'm saying is, going forward, let's stop talking about the past, stop talking about days of cancer. We need to be clear. If you're offering to take cell phones away from people, you could pull our Rodgers in the office like, hey man, I need you to shut up. I need you to be positive. And I need you to realize that you're our quarterback. That's it.
Someone just asked, Boy Green, why is your dad so anti-Aaron? Well, I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers' career record versus the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, that's why. I mean, for Pete's sake.
No. And what surprises me is everyone else, all the Jets nation, is not. That's really what surprises me. It has nothing to do with the Cowboys. I really don't care. I really think even you should have realized in Green Bay, he was making a commotion with the media in Green Bay, which is the least media-centric city that has an NFL franchise. And if you heard him saying his weird things and the issues that he had with Green Bay, which is probably the most player-friendly franchise that doesn't really even have an owner, right, in the NFL, if he was making that commotion, what was he going to do in Gotham City? What was that going to look like?
I'm fine with the Aaron Rodgers extra stuff that you have because, for me, the simplest way to put it is Aaron Rodgers is the best, most talented quarterback we've ever had in history, putting our legendary Joe Namath aside. And, he's been around forever, and he is better than anything we've had. So I'm willing to give him more power than I've given any other quarterback in recent Jets memory. Now, I think there's a fine line. We had Randy Mueller on, a former NFL GM, and you have to say he said he welcomes the recruiting, some of the other stuff Rodgers can bring in. He called him an asset and things, but that he's not the assistant general manager, that Randy Mueller, or whoever, Joe Douglas, right? He's the general manager, and they can work together on things because quarterbacks are part of those conversations and things of that nature. So the other thing I would just say, because I know this was part of the beginning of the conversation, is that you mentioned about firing Saleh and Hackett, and there's enough credence and information in this article. The only thing I know, so they've confirmed that this piece that dropped from The Athletic, they had worked on for over 6 months. So it's a long period of time. They also confirmed that they reached out to all the parties involved for some response or something to include in the piece. I don't know when those happened. So the Jets knew. Well, so we have that information, and also Zach Rosenblatt said it wasn't supposed to be this late, but new information on the Hackett, Saleh. Hey, we're going to try to add another coach. That delayed the story because they had to vet out all those sources, so it dropped later. So that means Woody Johnson and the Jets knew about this before it hit us. So that has to predate at least a month and a half or something. So they knew this back then. So I would just follow up to say that if they didn't fire them then they're not going to fire them now that it's hit the public, even though Woody also admitted. So shout out to Jets Twitter being on Woody tweets that he shows to the Saleh. Hey, look at what Boy Green's saying on the internet. I'm glad that I get that high on the poll. That's very nice. But again, if they didn't do it then, despite the influence of social media on Woody Johnson, it's Saturday. As I look at the date over here on another monitor, it's Saturday, February 3rd. The Jets are all in, and their best chance at all in is not tearing anything down and bringing in a new coach and then trying to understand their philosophy. It's running this back and then putting as much of your chips in the middle of the table, going all in on this regime, because your best chance at doing it is having the same thing but souped up. Because if you bring in a Belichick, as this was a criticism or not the criticism, but people said, oh, Dallas Cowboys, hire Bill Belichick. Oh, the only thing that's missing is coach, and you drop him in, booyah, they're going to win multiple Super Bowls, obviously. And what other people have said is I heard Rich Eisen describe this. You tear out the guts of Mike McCarthy, you insert the guts of Bill Belichick, and then it's just going to take time for that wild process to take foothold. In the same way, you tear Saleh's guts out and everything that would include. I don't know how you would sell that, by the way, because that would mean you'd have to remove Hackett. And then Aaron's like, the hell? And he's on a new offense. So anyway, the long and short of it is I think the Jets' best chance at winning, and we can all agree or disagree on how far that ceiling is. Your best shot is giving Saleh, Hackett, and all these other guys are running. And if it fails, you burn it down. But if not, you're tearing it out. I think you jeopardize your own chances at your own ceiling, whatever that ceiling is, of winning in 2024.
Yeah, just 3 or 4 quick things. You skipped Brett Favre when you said one of the greatest quarterbacks that ever played for the Jets. That was interesting, and he yielded results. Also, how is that recruiting that Rodgers has done? How's that worked out for the Jets?
I want to wait. No. This is a good point to bring up, because a lot of people do this. They make fun of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers didn't join the Jets officially until the last week of April, my birthday week, which phenomenal that aligned with the old birthday. I know at least of 4 to 5 free agents last year that did not sign with the Jets because I don't know what the Jets told them behind the scenes, but the public perception of like, we're really going to get Aaron Rodgers. When? Well, we'll see. Like then that going, who? So if I sign up, I'm playing with Aaron Rodgers or Zach Wilson. I'm going to go to plan B here, whatever that other choice is. So I know several free agents, either publicly in podcast or privately, said they're not playing for the Jets until they know Aaron Rodgers is playing quarterback for this team. And we didn't know that officially until the final week of April. So to me, I think a massive difference, and we'll be able to tell you have your little ring the bell, the BS bell. Okay. If we fast forward to free agency coming up in a month and a half, okay, and the Jets still can't get guys, I'll like listen, like you grab a seashell on the beach and you put it up. I'm like, do I hear the ocean? I'm like, what? Honey, stop! Pause the TV. Is that a bell? Is that my father somewhere ringing that bell? And then trying to get some service. What's happening there? Like he's trying to go to different parts of the house to make sure it's getting the proper reception. If that happens, we get to free agency and the Jets are not recruiting talent, I think that's when you can ring the bell. And there is something going on if Aaron Rodgers can't recruit talent, and this supposed talent is supposed to be offensive lineman, wide receivers, all this other stuff. I don't think it's a proper judge of, because from what we understand, the Jets were assuming, because they couldn't talk to Rodgers, that would have been tampering. So we're kind of assuming, would you want a Lazard? Yeah, Lazard. A Billy Turner? Okay, maybe one of those. Like they were just guessing on things that were Aaron Rodgers-ish and threw a bunch of that crap on the table. So I think with a offseason where Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback right from the get-go, right at the top, and you pair that money and the Aaron Rodgers factor, I believe they will be able to recruit some of this talent. we'll see the sexy wide receiver, whoever that is. Is that a Devontae Adams? Is that a T. Higgins? Is that one of these free agents that makes it on the market? I don't know. That's where I think will be the proper judge, I would say.
Right. So when did Aaron Rodgers say, I want to be a New York Jet? Was that the last week of
March? I should know the date because I have it. I'm going to tweet out a thing for the 1 year anniversary of that, but I believe it's like March 15th, I believe.
Right. And some of those players they signed, was that before or after March 15th?
Intends to play. What does that even mean?
Anyway,
I intend to be a billionaire.
Right. Again,
Okie dokie.
It could happen. You're like the Angels in the outfield, kid. It could happen. So
It's a trade, though. You just because he intended for it to happen.
You got what you paid for. Well, actually, you didn't get what you paid for. But Aaron Rodgers, 4-time MVP, all the blah, 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 all that other stuff. He's a declining superstar. As evidenced by, he is not as good as he once was, and he's not worth it. The problem, I really hope if they go forward, they go forward. What's going to happen is Wilson is going to go on to be a Hall of Famer in a different uniform. Sauce Gardner is going to go on. You're not going to be able to keep them all. You're burning that equity now. You're not going to be able to keep this defense together in 2025 via cost and everything else, all these rookies, and you will miss this window. That's what this is really all about. You're going to miss that window. But I'm sure they'll keep it. Let's run it back because it works so well. It's been not the most embarrassing franchise in the history of the NFL. Let's run it back. But anyways, I want to know when my promo is going to rival the ones that you lead off in the video, because you're just like, here's Dad. So when am I going to get some, recognition, right? Italy Jet even gets some recognition. Where's mine?
So you want some more juice on the intro is what you're saying?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I will work on that. I will get better at that. You're right. That part of the difference of this new intro that's been here for, I don't know, months, right? Is I used to have these electric loud intros, and here's I'm just gonna let's get to the brass tacks here. Unfortunately, with when this show is, I've got a 2-year-old daughter in the other room who is on the other side of this wall right here. So I need to relocate the studio or something so I can scream and yell as loud as I can. So that's one part of that's like subconsciously affected my high boy grade. Yeah. So like I've kind of had to like in my own brain kind of recalibrate that, but you're right. I'm using that as a crutch to not use the juice that God gave me and blessed me, obviously. So I will work on that. That is a fair just point to bring to the table. Hey man, I'm like your father for Pete's sake. So yes, I will work on that.
Very good, sir.
Wow. What a show. 43 minutes of action. That did we cover all the bases there, Valor?
Yeah.
Because I know by the time we get to the following week, I imagine the athletic piece will be laid down like a baby and put to rest.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Well, Father, good stuff. We'll see you, next Saturday? And by then, we will get some Super Bowl action. Obviously, this weekend, just the Pro Bowl mini games and random crap that's happening. So we'll follow up on the following Saturday with some Super Bowl predictions and things of that nature. It should be a doozy.
Sounds great, and I'll ring myself out.
Wow, that will be remembered forever in the show's history. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow morning.